I'm Verity, 32, and I had been living with my husband of 5 years, Bernard, when everything started to fall apart. Initially, things were wonderful between us, but that changed once Bernard got a promotion. He became cocky and arrogant, and I noticed him pulling away from me. I confided in my mother-in-law, whom I trust deeply, about the situation. I really don't know what's wrong with him, I said. Have you tried talking to him about it? She asked. Yes, many times, but he always brushes it off and acts like everything's fine. When I suggest stricter measures like going to a couples counselor, he gets really angry. Oh goodness, that doesn't sound like my precious Bernard. Maybe because you coddle him too much and those rose-colored glasses prevent you from seeing the truth, I thought but didn't say out loud. Things continued to deteriorate after his promotion. A few months of enduring his insufferable behavior led to a shocking discovery. One day, while cleaning the bedroom, I noticed Bernard's phone dangerously close to the edge of the bedside table. As I moved it, a text from someone named Pizza Hut popped up. Curious, I opened the message and found a series of horrifying texts and inappropriate pictures. Bernard was cheating on me. Overwhelmed, I heard heavy footsteps approaching. I quickly locked the phone and put it back. Bernard entered the room. Verity, where the hell are my socks? They're here, darling. I was just tidying up, I replied, trying to keep my composure. Why do you look like you've just seen a monster? Because in that moment, I had. The man standing in front of me was no longer my sweet Bernard, but an unrecognizable beast who had shattered my life. Too weak to confront him, I muttered something about period cramps, and he left. That night, I sobbed into my pillow, my cheating husband sleeping peacefully beside me. Though deeply saddened, I was also enraged. How could he cheat on me after everything? I held on to this anger and decided to expose him. Early the next morning, before Bernard woke up, I gathered all the evidence I needed from his phone. His mistress's name was Rita. I sent everything to my phone, put his phone back, and waited for his mother, Deborah, to arrive. Deborah arrived shortly after Bernard left for work. When I showed her the evidence, she was as horrified and disgusted as I had been. After a moment of shock, she spoke up. We need to do something about this. He's absolutely lost it. I'm so hurt, Deborah. I know, my dear, but we'll get through this. I'll call him right now. Deborah called Bernard and put him on speaker. Bernard, this better be some sick prank because if any of this is true, I don't know how I will look you in the face again. Mom, slow down. What are you talking about? Who the hell is Rita? The silence that followed confirmed everything. He had been cheating on me for quite a while. You better get back home right this instant. We need to discuss this face to face. Deborah hung up, and for the next 30 minutes I was inconsolable. Bernard finally arrived home, bringing Rita with him. What is the meaning of this? Is this the wench? Don't call her that, Mom. I love her. What'd you just say? Yes, Verity, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but now is as good a time as any. I am in love with Rita. She makes me happy. I've realized I am at a higher status than my past life. To put it lightly, you're like the older version of a gaming console, and Rita is like the 5 pounds. Bernard, what are you saying? Do you know what you've put Verity through? And you, how dare you get with a married man? Have you no shame? Well, Mom, I believe that we're soulmates, Rita declared. He's in love with me, and I'm in love with him. We're going to start a family together. Oh, so you think you're going to change this man? Newsflash, honey. A cheater will always be a cheater. Based on what he's just said, he will always be searching for something bigger, better, and newer. You're not special, sweetie. Take my advice and leave now before things get worse. You're young. You still have your life ahead of you. Don't tie yourself to a man like this. Enough. Bernard interrupted. I know you're hurt, Verity, but it's not my fault you let yourself go. You have to understand, as a man I have needs, and Rita fulfills them. I guess this all goes without saying, but I want a divorce. As if my heart couldn't shatter anymore, it miraculously did. I was too stunned to respond. I started to zone out of this dreadful situation, but I could hear barely audible shouting between Deborah and Bernard in the background. Amid the chaos, my phone buzzed with a text from my family lawyer. A great uncle of mine had recently passed away, and part of his will indicated that once the inheritance was properly divided among the appropriate individuals, the actual amount would be disclosed to the recipients. Uncle Henry had always been dramatic, even in death. The text read, Dear Verity, as always, I hope you're well. As you know, Your great Uncle Henry has left some inheritance money for you, but unfortunately, it's going to take a bit longer than expected to process the proper funds. Some of your family members are arguing about who gets to keep what. Please call for further clarification if needed. Take care. Knowing my crazy and toxic family, I highly doubted there'd be any money left for me. I was always last place, and the same rang true for my failed marriage. I zoned back in to hear more commotion. Verity, are you even listening? Deborah asked, exasperated. What is there to listen to? Bernard has shown us who he is, right? He doesn't want to be with me anymore, right? That's that. I can't fight for someone who won't fight for me, for us. But I will say this, Bernard, by the time your karma is finished with you, you will wish you'd never been born. I'm done here. With that, I gathered up whatever strength I had left, went to my room to pack some of my things, and walked out the front door. As I was leaving, Deborah called after me, assuring me that everything would be fixed. Bless her heart, she still believed that part of her sweet baby boy was still alive. But all I saw was a hollow shell of a man. For the next couple of weeks, I rented cheap motel rooms while Bernard began processing the divorce papers. He had friends who could help speed up the process. He acknowledged that this was hard for me and wanted to expedite things so that I didn't have to suffer any longer. Sounded to me like a guilty conscience. By this point, I was so drained I had cried all my tears. Approximately 6 months after the debacle, Bernard and I were officially divorced. Surprisingly, the process was relatively smooth because we were agreeable about most things. Bernard, being the selfish person he was, wanted to keep most of his money, knowing I had nothing to my name as a housewife. However, I didn't desire any of that money because it had turned him into such a selfish and evil man. Well, I guess that settles it then. It was nice knowing you, Verity. I hope you take care of yourself, Bernard said with an air of finality. I hope you rot in hell where you belong. I have no desire to keep in contact with you, so please refrain from doing so. Have the day you think you deserve, I retorted, stomping off. I was still jaded and hurting, but I was picking myself back up again. While I was still legally married to Bernard, I had used the money in our shared account to kickstart a small business I had always dreamed of, a little cafe that I began to rent. It was a way for me to make money since I knew I would be getting little to nothing from the divorce settlement. As I walked to my apartment complex, which I had started renting shortly after launching the business, I received an email from George, my family lawyer. I was very confused by what I read. Dear Verity, my apologies once again for the awful marital situation you're going through. But I have some good news to share with you. Please contact me at your earliest convenience. 3 hours later, George and I met at my quaint little cafe to discuss the important news he couldn't tell me over the phone. Hello, George. I hope you're well. Hey, Verity. I can tell you're hurting, so I won't take up much of your time. Let me cut to the chase. You've got the inheritance. What? What did you say? You heard me right. You've got the inheritance. I'm so sorry it took so long to finalize. Your great Uncle Henry left most of the money to you. Here's a letter from him that you need to read now that all the conditions have been met. The letter read as follows. My dear Verity, I know life has been unkind to you. You have always been put in last place by both friends and family, but I have decided that enough is enough. No more will you be subject to pain and humiliation. Please accept this inheritance money and use it to ameliorate your life in the best way you can. Knowing your toxic family members, they most likely won't be happy with the distribution of funds. But I don't care. All I care about is your health and well-being. If you're reading this now, you know that all the money you are about to receive is wholly yours. You won't have to go through any troubles or negotiations with anyone. I wanted to exempt you from this messy process, which is why you are receiving this money now. I know you will do wonderful things. All my love, your great Uncle Henry. By the time I finished reading the letter, I was sobbing. Some customers got up and left due to the scene I was making, but I didn't care. I was overwhelmed with joy. It was so refreshing to hear good news after months of crying and wondering why all of this had happened to me. How much is it? I asked, still shaking with emotion. It's $170,000, George replied. I gasped. That was a lot of money, more than enough to help me continue to grow and expand my business. Finally, things were looking up. I thanked George profusely for his loyalty and kindness, and he went on his way. That night, I called Deborah to tell her everything. You said the amount is how much? she asked, disbelief evident in her voice. Yep, you heard me right, Deborah. We were still keeping in touch despite everything. I trusted her, at least for a while, but what she did next was completely deplorable. I woke up the next morning to a slew of angry texts from none other than Bernard. Less than 24 hours after telling him not to contact me again, here he was, contacting me. Against my better judgment, we decided to meet up to discuss whatever it was that was pressing him. A part of me still had hopes that things would change. We met at my cafe. So this is the infamous cafe. It's cute, I guess, Bernard remarked, looking around with a disdainful air. What do you want, Bernard? Haven't you taken enough from me? Let's cut to the chase. Half of that money is mine. What? My mom told me everything. She told me about the inheritance money that finally came. Talk about good timing, am I right? But anyways, we need that money. You must have lost your mind if you think I'm going to give you anything. Besides, don't you make enough money as it is? What exactly is your obsession with me? Why didn't you care when you were breaking my heart and didn't even bat an eye? What are you talking about? You knew I was a wreck. You were literally behind the wheel for all the turmoil you caused me. You watched me suffer. What else do you want from me? When will you be satisfied? When you see me in my coffin? Enough. I don't have time for this. Just give me my money and I'll be on my way. I need the money for my wedding to Rita. What exactly makes you think you're entitled to this money? Are you sick in the head? The inheritance situation was happening while we were still married, so technically, that money belongs to me. I paused, feeling embarrassed. I didn't know the technicalities like that. Was something like that possible? So give me my money. If I'm ever going to give you any money, we'll need a lawyer present. I've heard what you've said. Go home. I will contact you in the morning. Bernard begrudgingly left, angry because he couldn't control me any longer. If we'd still been married, I would have given him my kidney if he asked. But now I couldn't even look this man in the eye without feeling disgusted. In the morning, I called George and the lawyers who were helping us out with the divorce. I explained my situation, and everyone agreed in unison that what Bernard was doing wasn't logical or right. The inheritance money was finalized after signing the divorce papers, and any money that came my way was mine, which was exactly what I thought. Bernard tried to gaslight me into believing that I owed him anything. Angrily, I drove to the house that I used to call home for 5 years and knocked on the door. Eventually, someone answered. Oh hell. Move. I'm not here for you. I'm here for your evil fiancé. What is the meaning of this? Don't you dare come into my house and cause a ruckus. Oh, you mean our house? The house that we built together? You have a lot of nerve treating me the way you do, as if I wasn't good to you. I genuinely believe you should get your head checked because there are some screws loose. Where is your mother? At that moment, like clockwork, Deborah came out of the kitchen. Now, what's all this noise I'm hearing? Deborah, how could you do this to me? What do you mean? You told your trifling son about the inheritance money. What for? Don't speak to me about my son that way. I told him because, well, I believed that perhaps we could partake in some of that money. I should have known where Bernard got his cheating habit from. I guess the apple didn't fall far from the tree. All of you are sick. You're trying to siphon money from me. I'm struggling to keep afloat, and something good has happened to me for once in my life, and you people want to take that away from me. Well, too bad. I went on to explain to the bumbling fools that the money I got was completely mine, and that because the divorce papers were signed. There was no way for any of these people to get their grubby hands on my money. Of course, Bernard didn't like this news at all, and he proceeded to go on a little rampage, yelling and cursing and even breaking things. I saw his true colors because you won't believe what happened next. Bernard got into his car and drove off. I thought we were done arguing and that he went somewhere to cool off. But when I arrived at my cafe, I found it had been vandalized. The windows were broken and most of the furniture was damaged. I immediately knew who did this and called the perpetrator. Bernard, really? You vandalized my shop? It had to be done. You aren't giving us the money. Maybe now you'll cooperate. I know you don't have security cameras, so good luck trying to press charges. Wow. Just wow. I cut the call and proceeded to call my good friend George to assess the situation. George began to laugh. We got him now, Verity. What do you mean? He's ruined everything. He's ruined my life, and even if I fix it, he'll come back again and again. Don't you see, Verity? We can sue him for this, and with that being said, we can also renegotiate the terms of your divorce settlement. But I don't have evidence. Yes, you do. There's always evidence. And sure enough, there certainly was. I discovered that the cameras that came with the building were still working. I was under the impression that they weren't functional, and I caught Bernard's vandalism very clearly. I brought this evidence to George to collate and compose a case against Bernard. Thankfully, our case was well received, and because of the nature of our tumultuous relationship, as well as the collection of all the verbal and emotional abuse that had happened to me, I was highly favored, and the judge determined that I would be receiving $20,000 from Bernard in damages. This obviously made Bernard fill up with rage, and he proceeded to appeal this, but time and time again, his appeal was rejected. Now that I have all this money, I can properly cater to my cafe and allow it to grow and expand. The last I heard of Bernard, Rita, and Deborah was that they were constantly quarreling and bickering. And word on the curb is that Bernard has been spotted several times with a young and attractive blonde woman on his arm.